Our McNeil adventure began in beautiful Homer, Alaska, with Northwind Aviation and owner-pilot Jose DeCreft. We had flown with his father, Bill, 23 years earlier. Everything about the flight was spectacular, and as we approached, we could see grizzlies on the beach below. At any time, we could walk out on the beach beside our camp and watch the bear activity unfold. Bears would be wandering the spit, digging for clams, fishing, eating sedge grass, and relaxing. 24 hours of daylight allowed us to film these scenes at midnight. Each morning about 9 o'clock, we put on our hip waders and began our walk to the viewing area across the tidal flats and over the bluff. Because our permit slot was early in the season, there were lots of viewing activities along a much smaller McVick Creek. Usually we would head there in the morning to see what was going on before heading over to the falls at McNeil. One of the nice things about McVick was that it was a much quieter setting, and you could hear the noises and the communication between this sow and her cubs and other bears as they came together and would jaw pop and grunt and make the noises that they make to try and determine who was going to be the dominant bear in the interaction. Although this sow was very habituated to people and very tolerant of our presence, she did not want her cub getting too close to where we were sitting, so she called her back. Clearly you can see that it was these bears she was much more concerned about than our presence at McVick. The sow in these scenes was clearly more concerned about the other bears in the area than she was about us, and her final retreat was up this bluff where she felt her cubs would be out of harm's way. It's easy in this film to see what attracts the bears to the McVick area, as the fish are plentiful in these pools where they're getting ready to make their run up the river. This bear was just fun to watch. Bears were named for research purposes and to keep track of the number of fish that they caught. This bear was named Jordan, and he was a particularly habituated bear. He spent a great deal of time fishing and relaxing in our very close presence. This young male had been chased off by older, more dominant males, chased away by a sow, and left in a pool with no fish. He seems to be taking his aggression out on this stick. This next scene shows the typical number of bears as we cross the tidal flats on the way out to McNeil Falls. The primary goal of the technicians that were leading us was to help make sure that we did not interrupt the bears' natural behavior on the way out there. This is our initial approach to the falls. You can see it's much larger, much louder, and you'll eventually see there's many more bears in the same place at the same time. This bear is approaching from left of the viewing area. Many of the bears came across the trail that came directly in front of where we were sitting viewing the bears. The bears were fishing when we arrived and had varying degrees of success. Some bears caught fish after fish, and others would spend a half hour to an hour staring at a pool waiting for salmon to pass. Conflicts over fish and fishing territories were common. Usually it was posturing and jaw-popping and cowboy walking, but sometimes it came to blows, and we saw several bears get significant injuries. It's easy to see from this clip how comfortable the bears were with our presence and how close they would come to us.
I got some of it. Did he steal it? Alright. He's going up to get it back. The guy with the jaw had it.
Visiting the coastal grizzlies of McNeil was an extraordinary opportunity to leave the human-centered world behind and see nature as it has existed for thousands of years.